Hi, this is Joelle Fawcett, and welcome to the Soul Method podcast.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop
Welcome
for
back.
traffic.
I am so glad you're here. The mission of the Soul Method is to be your guide, to heal from the past, be at peace in the present, and create a future you love. This is episode 3 of the Soul Method podcast, titled A Tiny Mad Idea. Now, if you listened to the last episode, you know that when I first entered my coach's office, I was a hot mess, like with extra heat added. It was pretty bad. I had just gone through what I considered to be a midlife crisis, and now my life was falling apart around me. I briefly mentioned in that episode how my ego was going absolutely insane while I was sitting there. It wanted to be right. My ego was extremely proud and completely terrified of being found out as a fraud, despite my bravado. And, worst of all, it wouldn't shut up. Like the term codependence, the word ego is often thrown around in conversation with many implied meanings. I'm sure you've heard people say, "He's got a huge ego," or "She's so egotistical." In these situations, most people are referring to someone thinking a lot of themselves or boasting about a personal accomplishment. Having a, quote, big ego is not considered a great thing. Before I started doing this work, when I heard the term ego, I honestly thought of all the popular kids back in high school. You know, when I was there, which is like a century ago. I remember watching them all stand in a crowd and smirk when they looked over at us. I was definitely a nerd in high school, so the smirk to me said that they knew. They knew how pretty and hot they were and how much they loved watching us watch them with jealousy. Can you relate at all? I am happy to report now that the sitcom of my teenage years has been gracefully dissolved with the reality check that I made most of that up in my own head. If any of my classmates hear this, I can't wait to see you at our 20-year reunion, which is in 2 years. Where did the time go? The irony of that particular situation is that while I stood on the side of the hallway and looked at them thinking, geez, they're so egotistical, the reality is that they weren't the ones with an out-of-control ego. I was. Let's back up. Needless to say, these modern concepts of egotism do not paint a full picture of the ego. We all have an ego. We are born with it, and it awakens in our mind at some point in childhood. When we are young kids, our ego is quiet, which is a part of the innocence of children. Kids just are. And if you're a parent, you can attest to this. Young children don't think about the thoughts of others. They don't think about the ramifications of their actions or argue with themselves in their own heads. For example, when's the last time you saw a 1-year-old try to figure out if he was hungry or not? When's the last time your 4-year-old was confused about whether or not she was tired? When have you seen a 2-year-old refrain from poking her hands in the mud because she's worried her BFF might comment on dirty fingernails? It just doesn't happen, right? Then, something happens at some point in childhood. Being in this world, our minds start to develop, and one way or another, we get a tiny, mad idea. This brings us to principle number 4 of the SoL Method. For the first 3 principles, see episode 2. Principle number 4. We are all conceived and born into a state of perfect authenticity and in alignment with our highest selves, which is a state of love. Only through the ego's tiny mad idea are we drawn into beliefs of separateness and fear. When I say separateness, I mean the belief that you are distinct from me, that you are separate and thus can be better than me, less than me, or so separate that I can fear you or what you think of me. The metaphysical text, A Course in Miracles, teaches that when we believe the ego's false perceptions over love, we become separate from the state of alignment. All it takes is one tiny mad idea for us to choose a state of fear instead of love. Here's an example. When I was 5 years old, my family moved into a small community outside of Philadelphia. This community had a lot of large families who had been there for a long time. So, literally, guys, nearly half of my first grade class was related to each other. However, my family was small, and even outside of the community, I didn't have cousins or aunts or uncles that I was close with. Based on comparing my classmates' family experiences to my own, I picked up the tiny mad idea that I didn't belong. You know the craziest part about these tiny mad ideas? We can believe them forever. This tiny mad idea took me 25 years to identify and release. Until I started working with my coach, I was still living out of the belief that I didn't belong. Think of these tiny mad ideas like glasses with different colored lenses. As kids, we pick up a pair and put them on. Until we choose to take these glasses off, everything we see and do will be colored by that core belief. When I picked up the glasses with the lens of, I don't belong, everything in my life became colored by that belief, and it became impossible to separate what was real with that false idea. On top of it all, until I started working with my coach, I had no idea I even had glasses on, much less that I was wearing several pairs. As adults, we are often not aware of the belief system glasses we are wearing as they quickly become a part of our subconscious way of being. Often, we consciously experience our egos as that voice in our heads. I mentioned this in the last episode. You know that voice, the one that sounds like you. It never stops. It talks about everything, and somehow at the same time manages to make 0 sense. Now, I want to make clear that you are not your ego. You are not that voice. The authentic, aligned part of you is the one listening to that voice. The problem is that most of us in the Western world have so closely identified with that voice by the time we reach adulthood that we cannot distinguish it from ourselves, much less control it. The belief that you are your mind is a delusion of the ego and is often the source of most of our suffering in life. Your ego will always want to be right, it will always be defensive, and it will never want to take personal responsibility. In his book, Untethered Soul, Michael Singer writes on this topic saying, quote, "There is nothing more important to true growth than realizing that you are not the voice of the mind. You are the one who hears it. If you don't understand this, you will try to figure out which of the many things the voice says is really you. People go through so many changes in the name of trying to find themselves. They want to discover which of these voices which of these aspects of their personality is who they really are? The answer is simple: none of them. The life you want, the life where you have returned to that authentic expression of your most aligned self, can only be found by transcending your ego. Now, I know the term transcendence may seem complicated and like something discussed in really old books that are falling apart. To demystify this concept, all transcendence means is to move beyond. To transcend the ego simply means to witness without judgment and release. So, you guys want a really fresh example of me on the struggle bus with my ego? Because here's the deal. Our egos will be with us for life. And while I've been at this work for a minute, I am not immune in the least to my ego wreaking havoc in my mind. I've just learned some simple tools so that I have the ability to deal with myself rather than having these insane thoughts pour out and ruin my life. And I'm not exaggerating. People who let this voice run their lives often live from one drama to the next, never quite sure how to fix it, and yet very determined that it couldn't possibly be their fault. When I'm writing down my thoughts for this episode, it's Saturday, March 26th, around 9:30 p.m. I had a really great morning today. I did yoga, hung out with my two kids, and this afternoon I headed out to meet my boyfriend and our tribe at the belated Conshohocken St. Patrick's Day Parade. It's a bit chilly out, and I meet up with Joe, my boyfriend, and a few of the guys and follow their motorcycles in my car with my kids over to where we are meeting everyone else to watch the parade. Already, the voice in my head has started. Why the hell can't these guys ride like they have a car behind them? That jackass just cut me off, and I don't know where I'm going. Why did I sign up for this? Why didn't I ask for the address? I am never doing this again. This is dumb. Okay, so I'm off to a good start, right? So we get there, and the parade finally starts. The voice starts again. Why won't my daughter just put on her jacket? Clearly, she's freezing cold. Her hands are purple. Why can't my son just stop swinging his water bottle around? Please, don't lick the stanchion. Then, of course, someone falls on the cement. Now, my son is on the spectrum, and in situations like this, when he gets hurt, he has zero concept of how loud he is. So, his palms are a bit scraped, and he screams. Like someone coming after you with a knife kind of scream. Everyone stares at me, and the voice goes crazy. Why can't he just be quiet? They're all going to think I'm a terrible mom. It's just a scratch, kid. Wait, don't say that to him. You can't discount his feelings. But Jesus, please just shut up. All the while, my face remains composed as my vibration slowly goes up with my anxiety. Finally, the parade is done, and I'm feeling exhausted at this point, so I vote to take my kids home rather than hanging out with everybody at the after party. Joe tells me he'll be down to my house in a bit. I say, awesome. I'll see you later. Have a great time and tell everybody I say goodbye. At home, time passes. The voice starts again. It's been 2 hours. Where is he? It's been 3 hours. Why hasn't he texted me? I don't like being ignored. He's not ignoring you. He's at a party. You're a coach. Get a grip. Don't do this to yourself. But why hasn't he reached out to me? I bet there's a lot of other girls at this party. He'll probably just tell me he's not coming down at all. Wait, he told you he's coming down. You can trust him. But would it really be a big deal if he didn't? Don't get your hopes up, but you can trust him. Now, can anyone relate? This is insanity. Here's the kicker. When we identify with the voice in our head, we emotionally react to what we are thinking rather than what is actually real. At this point, because I'd been listening to that voice all day, I was feeling exhausted, hurt, sad, anxious, and angry. In his book, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle writes, quote, "Often a vicious cycle builds up between your thinking and the emotion. They feed each other. The thought pattern creates a magnified reflection of itself in the form of an emotion. By dwelling mentally on the situation, event, or person that is the perceived cause of the emotion, the thought pattern feeds energy to the emotion, which in turn energizes the thought pattern, and so on. So often in my life, I've felt completely caught in my head and unable to move on from going around and around on this sick merry-go-round of feeling, thought, feeling, thought. And guess what? Besides me feeding my kids dinner, nothing had actually happened. Nothing that voice told me was real. Now, 10 years ago, this is exactly how I would have blown up my relationship. I would have believed everything that voice told me and taken it all to my partner in a fit of frustration. I would have emotionally unloaded on him, asking him to do things differently so that little voice could tell me to feel better. I would have dug in deeper and blamed him. Most likely, he would have been confused, defensive, irritated, and it would have been the start of resentment. Does this pattern sound familiar? Because that little voice loves codependent relationships. Thank the goddess that I have learned a thing or two in the past few years. I actually have gone so far as to give this crazy voice in my head a name. Her name is Sushi. Yes, like the Japanese food. Why did I pick Sushi to name my voice? Mostly because the fact that the thought of sticky rice and fish is often completely opposite of any of the nonsense going on in my head, and it helps to snap me out of believing whatever she is saying. I really encourage you to name your voice too. Pick something ridiculous, something silly, maybe a movie reference, or something related to a book. The sillier, the better, because it will help you pull yourself energetically away from what the voice is saying, as well as allow you to more easily witness it without judgment. I've heard of people naming their voices Sadness from the Disney movie Inside Out, Drop Dead Fred, or even Wah 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 after Charlie Brown's parents. Your ego probably won't like being named, so if you feel resistance to this, trust me, it's normal. That voice in your head is going to fight against anything that makes you believe that it isn't you. It is going to battle tooth and nail against calming down in any way, and it will try to distract you or tell you all the reasons why this is a silly thing to do. Do it anyway. So, instead of unloading all the things Sushi was telling me onto Joe, I paused and took several deep breaths. Then I actually physically said, "Stop. It's time to find peace." Now, I've been in this situation plenty of times in sessions with my coach, and after working with her for a while, this is how things would go. After pouring my heart out to her, explaining all the things the voice in my head was saying, she would normally pause, smile, and wait. Then I would talk more about all the emotions that were going along with the things the voice was saying. I would talk about my fears and doubts and anxiety. Again, she would wait. Finally, I would sigh as the truth crept over me. This has nothing to do with him, does it? She would smile knowingly. You're getting so good at this. It was on that statement that I settled this evening. This has nothing to do with Joe. Like I said, nothing real had actually happened. It was all going on inside my head. What was real was me telling Joe that I would see him soon, and him saying, "Awesome, I'll be down in a bit," followed by us taking care of ourselves for the past few hours. That's it. I go into a process my coach taught me years ago to release all of the tension and anxiety I'm feeling. This is one of the many techniques I've learned over the years, and I'll be sharing it with you in the next episode. Honestly, for those of you who have asked me what the secret is to me and Joe's drama-free relationship, the information in this episode and the next one is a key part of it. So I go through this process and bring myself back to peace. All the tension and anxiety leave my body, and the energy in my aura is brought down to a grounded, deep, and powerful vibration. Exactly when this is done and the energy is cleared, guess who texts me to tell me he's on his way down? Coincidence? Personally, I don't think so. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe our lives have purpose and meaning, and that we are all born here to make manifest some part of the divine that lives deep inside of us. It's not surprising to me in the least that the moment I cleared all the negative energy was when Joe reached out to me. Because here's something that I learned long ago. The law of attraction doesn't work the way our egos want it to. All thoughts and emotions are energetically based. And once you sit on the ego's insane merry-go-round, what tends to happen is your vibration will move out of a peaceful state. For example, have you ever been around somebody and could practically feel the anger or anxiety coming off of them? If your vibration is rising with anxiety or anger, it will physically affect your body as well. Your heart will start to beat faster, your breathing will become more shallow, your jaw tightens, and your shoulders stiffen. This is what happened to me when I started listening to Sushi that day. My vibrations started going up to an incredibly high, sharp pitch as I became completely full of frustration and anxiety. When we are in this state and holding on to these types of emotions and energy, we cannot create space for what our hearts truly desire. Let me explain in more detail. Everything in, on, and around our planet is made of energy. You, me, and everything around us is made up of trillions of vibrating atoms, and these atoms all vibrate at different frequencies. Back in physics class in high school, most of us were taught the Newtonian model of the atom, which looks like a solid structure with those electrons whirling around a center mass. While we have all heard of Einstein, we were never introduced to his model of the atom, which is based in quantum physics. Remember E equals mc squared? What this simply means is that energy and matter are one and the same. That E, or energy, is m, or mass or matter, multiplied by the speed of light. Einstein revealed that we do not live in a universe with physical objects separated by dead space. Unlike what you most likely learned in high school, atoms are made up of energy, not tangible matter, and each atom has its own specific energy structure. The vibrational structure of the trillions of atoms that make up the physical matter of our universe is no different than the vibrational structure of emotions and thoughts. The only difference is that most of us do not see emotions and thoughts with the naked eye. Scientifically, the connection between our thoughts, emotions, and our physical lives has been studied and proven time and time again. So I'm not going to go into it at length here. However, if you are wanting to dive down this rabbit hole, I highly suggest two books: The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce H. Lipton, as well as Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. The research in both of these books is not woo-woo kumbaya stuff. They are science-based books with cellular diagrams, brain scans, and more. They cover at length how the structure of our cells, our health, and even the length of our lives is directly impacted by the energetic vibration of our physical, mental, and emotional environment. All of which, I might add, are directly under our control once we reach adulthood. As Tesla said, quote, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." So, if our lives are directly impacted by our thoughts and emotions, and our egos are in charge of our thoughts and emotions, I bet you can see where I'm going here. Another fact of the energy of the universe is that like energy attracts like energy. As the old saying goes, birds of a feather. This is the basis for the law of attraction, which is, simply put, how by meditating on or imagining a desired outcome, you can energetically pull things to you and manifest in your life. Now, if you've never heard of this before, stay with me. Even though it sounds like something out of a science fiction novel, I'm sure if you think about it, you've experienced this phenomenon in your own life. Or you definitely know somebody who has. I'm not talking about a new car magically appearing in your garage. The law of attraction works in much more subtle ways. For example, you might have been randomly thinking about a friend you haven't seen in a while, and then suddenly you run into him at a grocery store. Maybe you keep meaning to phone a family member, and then suddenly she calls you out of the blue. You probably know people who always seem to have the best luck, or are always winning random things, like concert tickets on the radio. Most people call it luck or chance, but there is no chance about it. It's all about energy. Now, here's one detail that is very important, and also why some people become incredibly frustrated when attempting to use the law of attraction to manifest. Energetically, you do not pull to you what you want, especially not what your ego wants. You attract to you what you energetically are. You can want all sorts of things: a new car, a new relationship, children, a promotion at work, a vacation, right? But if your ego is wreaking havoc on your mental, emotional, and energetic environment, you will only manifest more chaos. And here's the biggest catch of all: the law of attraction isn't only working when we want it to. The law of attraction is like the law of gravity. It works just as well when you're jumping on a trampoline as when someone accidentally bounces off and onto the hard ground. If you're allowing your ego to control the choices you make in life and by default, the emotions you feel, you are at the mercy of an insane driver who does not only not know how to read a map, she doesn't even know where she's going, much less how to drive. But she will always demand to drive the vehicle of your life, all the while complaining about the seat, noting the bad weather, and being afraid of the dog barking on the corner. She will turn the radio up and down, blame everyone else around her and you for the traffic, and altogether make you crazy and leave you wondering how on earth you got to McDonald's when you thought you had wanted to go to Ruth Chris Steakhouse. Have you ever been there? Can you think of a time in your life where the voice took over and you believed everything it said? The next thing you know, you're accusing your partner, doors slam, dinner plans are canceled, and suddenly it's 2 a.m. and you're lying in bed wondering, what the hell happened? How did I get here? It's time to take back control of the steering wheel. Just because that voice in your head jumps up and down and screams loudly does not mean that it is right, much less that it has your best interests at heart. The strongest desire of everyone's ego is the same: to protect itself by viewing everything and everyone outside of you as a potential threat. Your ego wants you to believe that there is no distinction between you and it, and that everything it is doing is to protect you. But this is simply not true. All human egos are incredibly committed to taking everyone around you very personally. Thus, they have zero perspective. They cannot tell the difference between what is physical fact and what is made up based on inferences and suggestions that have no basis in reality. To be honest with you guys, after doing this work for so many years, it is completely one of my pet peeves when somebody says to me, "Well, you said this, so that must mean that you're trying to tell me this." Hello, ego. No, what I said was actually just what I said. Nothing else. Maybe you can relate. Can you imagine a time in your life when maybe your boss sent you an email asking you to redo a part of your project, and the next thing you know, that little voice is telling you that you are a terrible employee and that your boss is really suggesting that you are not capable of doing this project at all? The connection between our physical lives and our mental and emotional environment is why the practices of witnessing and releasing are so incredibly important if you wish to live a fulfilled and authentic life. We must witness that voice without judgment and release its insanity with all the chaotic energy it brings along with it if we desire to manifest our greatest, most aligned futures. If you can find peace in the present and heal the energetic ties to your past, you can quite literally pull your most aligned future to you. I'm going to say that again. This is why this practice is so incredibly important if you wish to live a fulfilled and authentic life. We must witness that voice without judgment and release its insanity and all the chaotic energy it brings along with it if we desire to manifest our greatest and most aligned futures. If you can find peace in the present and heal the energetic ties to your past, you can quite literally pull your most aligned future to you. Honestly, before I started doing this work, my life was complete chaos. I was constantly on the insane merry-go-round of my ego, created by the thought emotion whirlwind, and I was unable to separate myself from it, much less heal past memories, which only served to drag more insanity into my present state. I took everyone around me incredibly personally. This means that I made the actions of everyone around me about me all the time. The worst part is that I thought it was normal to live this way because that's all I saw around me. Now, I can honestly say that I love my life. Not because I'm perfect all the time or that I don't experience chaos, as my parade story clearly attests to. I love my life because I'm completely confident in my ability to both identify and release my ego. This isn't because I mentally beat up my sushi or blame her for doing her thing. After all, at her core, she is really just trying to protect me from what she believes are scary things. She will always be with me as this voice is a part of the state of being human. Now, however, when we get in the car together, she sits in the back seat. And if she starts to throw a temper tantrum, I can acknowledge what she's saying without handing her over the GPS. As we bring this episode to a close, I have to ask, what are your biggest takeaways? Can you relate to my parade story? Have you ever identified that voice in your head before? Like I promised, now that we all have an understanding as to why this is so important, in the next episode, I will teach you the practice my coach taught me years ago. This practice will allow you to witness and release your ego and find transcendence and peace in the present. That being said, I hope you will subscribe and join us next time.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic.